Hey everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to be rating the monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds. This tier list is based solely on my thoughts of each monster, which means that its design, ecology, moveset, and lore are all going to be taken into account. So please don't flame me too much in the comments if I put a monster you adore really low into the rankings. Without further ado, let's begin! So, with our good friend Shadowcabra. Well, I mean, Chupacabra is a good starting monster. I'd argue he's not overwhelming. He's not underwhelming. It's a good entry monster, which every monster hunter needs. So I'd say it's not a bad not, but it's not a good fight. Quemetry's got it's a chicken, and it is, well, a fire chicken basically. So it's what, the second monster that you fight in Wilds. I mean, I'd say like it could be a bit better. It's not amazing. Like, sure, it introduces the fire element very early on to especially to the newer players, but it just feels like a bit of a generic like monster. However, what doesn't feel like a generic monster is Lalabrina. Now, I did not like this because it was a spider. However, it is a really creative design take on a spider, and for that, I'm going to put it in a really good fight. I love how it is a rose. I would love for them to bring a variant into a title update that gives us like a blue or any other colored like rose variant, and it does like a different element, or like instead of it being when it paralyzes you, it could, blue to sleep you or give you like frost, like not frostbite, water blight. That would be really cool. Next, we've got Congalala, the good old fart monkey, a returning monster from, I think it's Monster Hunter 2. I do quite like Congalala, not just because it's a funny fart monkey, but it's got quite a lot of different elements to it. It's mainly based around, obviously, its breath and like barf and fart stench. They generally like that teach you how to bring in like, well, it basically limits you from being able to heal with the normal stinky debuff. But once he starts eating any of his like mushrooms, whether that be paralyzing mushrooms or like fire mushrooms, whatever mushrooms it is, it augments his attacks. So those like that barf turns into paralyzing, breath or something. Whatever he's eating basically, and I really love that. So I'm going to put Konglala in a really good fight here as well, next to Lalabrina. Next, we've got Bahalara, which is our first, I think, Leviathan type monster, if I'm not mistaken. It's a unique one. It's not bad. It's not good. I like it's just a basic Leviathan monster. So I like there's not much to say about it. It could be a bit better, but I mean, it's better than Quemetry's, I'll tell you that much. I know it's better than Quemetry's. Anything further to the left is still above anything further to the right in its category. Anyways, next is Doshiguma. I feel like Capcom let us down with Doshiguma and the pack mechanic because it just doesn't really feel utilized too much. In the story, it just felt it was very like, oh, here's the pack, and this one's the alpha. But outside of that story quest, you don't really see it, and I feel like just because of that, it's disappointing. Like it's cool, but it's not amazing. So I'm actually gonna put it below Quemetry's because it's just too basic. Ajara-Khan. Oh, Ajara-Khan. Oh, I didn't know how to feel about you at first. You remind me too much of Rajang, and I never really was the biggest fan of Rajang as a great sword player. However, after thinking about it since first encountering Ajara-Khan and fighting it a few more times, it's still annoying, but it's got some really cool moves, especially what I call the pinball, like Sonic spin to win, where it spins around and then does a dive bomb. Like jumps up and does a dive bomb. That's a really cool move. I would put that above Hongalala in the really good fight here. Next, Kiribami. This suffers from a similar thing to Doshiguma. However, it does hunt impacts, but I just don't like it. It just feels like too much of a bad monster. I don't know how to explain it. It's always in the air. It never wants to come down, and I don't know why it exists. It just feels like it exists to pad out the roster and just make, you like throw something else so it's just not just Doshiguma that uses the pack mechanic. But sorry to any Hear About Me lovers out there. Next, we've got our boy Nasilla, a returning monster, and I think the original spider monster, which unfortunately, due to there being more than just Nursilla now, I think it means that Nursilla isn't seen as good as, like, you know, for example, Lalabarina, or I forget what the other one is that is in Rise, because I think Rise added one as well, but it just doesn't really hit as hard as it used to when it was on its own. It's not a good fight, it's not a bad fight. I'll put it above Shatacabra, but that's only because of the fact that it's been outclassed by more specific types of, like, you know, spider monsters. Nursilla is just the spider. You know, it's a spider monster, essentially. Next is our good friend Raydao. Oh, Raydao. It's an easy amazing. Its sound effects, the music, the visuals, everything about it, the railgun attacks, it, like, the weather type that it's in, everything just sums us up to be a amazing monster, honestly. It's the best Apex. It's. I mean, I know I've heard that apparently when developing Monster Hunter Wilds, some of the developers actually thought that Raydao was the what's it called now, the flagship monster, and a lot of us did. Everyone who was following along with the releases actually did think that it was the monster, the box art monster, the flagship monster, but surprisingly it wasn't, and that just goes to show how well of a designer Raydao is. A lot of these Apexes, to be fair, could be argued to be the flagship monster, which is a great thing for us, and it means that we hopefully will get some amazing monsters coming in the future, both new and returning. Next is Rumpopolo. It's an interesting fight because of the fact that it's in a oil zone and it's an oil, like, gas monster, and it just, like, uses all of its gas and, well, gas in the oil to blow things up and just send you flying, and I love that. What I don't like is when it deflates. It looks so gross. The armor set is amazing. I'm not gonna say that it isn't. The armor set is absolutely amazing. However, it's just gross when it deflates, like I said. But it's a middle of the road for me, I'm gonna say. It's not a bad fight. It's not an amazing fight. It's probably slightly, it's unique, which, again, unfortunately for poor Nursilla, it's just a generic spider. It's too generic in my eyes. Rumpopolo, however, it's a unique monster take. I'll definitely like it. Uthduna is the next one on the list, and I mean, it's cool, but it's not as cool as some of the others on this list. And like, I don't know. It just feels like it really is missing something. Like, I feel if Wilds had, like, full water combat and Uthduna was able to inhabit that water combat area, it would do so much better. But it just feels like a massive whale, and it just kind of slobbers around and lumbers around at the most, like, dumb looking ways. Like, I mean, it's better than a Bahalara. I'd say. This is a difficult one for Uthduna because it is an apex, and it is quite cool when like, you break off all of its armor and then it's just a little, like, slug looking, like, thing, like a little worm thing, and then when it gets its armor back, it does this massive sort of, like, roar and, like, fancy attack. I don't know. I mean, it's probably just there, and it's lucky to be there, I'd say. It's lucky to be where it is. I could argue it being in the could be better category, or even I wish this wasn't here. However, what I wish would never leave is New Udra, which I love this. I love the idea of an octopus type monster, and I wish we had underwater combat, purely because of the fact that an underwater, like, full octopus monster would be such a cool thing, and I just can't stress how, like, cool it is that we just have an octopus type monster. It's just something that nobody could have ever predicted going into Wilds, and for that, it just deserves to be maybe not as yeah, actually no, it does deserve to be above Lalabarina. It's just such a unique, like, monster archetype and type itself. It borrows from Fatalis with its breath, and it uses its, like octopusness to just go into the rocks and just leave, or even go into the rocks and reposition. And it's such an amazing idea, and I love it. Next on the list, however, is Guardian Doshagama, which it suffers from the same things as normal Doshagama, but it's slightly more unique. I would probably put it like here. It's not a bad fight, but it's not a good fight, only because of the fact that it feels like it's got more variation to its attacks. It is still let down by the fact that like Guardian Doshagama could easily be like up here if it actually utilized its pack mechanic a lot better. But unfortunately it doesn't, and that's really sad. Next, however, is Guardian Rathalos. Looks very much like Silver Rathalos when you look at it on here at a glance, and I would probably rate I was going to say Silver Rathalos. I would probably rate Guardian Rathalos. I mean it's Rathalos, but like augmented with like Wilk abilities. It's Rathalos. Like it's not a bad fight. It's not a good fight. Like as a greatsword player, it's always annoying when it's flying around all the time. But Guardian Rathalos doesn't fly around actually as much as normal Rathalos, so I would actually probably put it at the top of not a bad, not good fight. It's good for it. Next, Jinderhard. I could put you down here, I could put you up here, I could put you anywhere on this list. Oh dear, you're such a hard one to rank. It's the only siege monster we have, or anything close to a siege monster right now, and that is unfortunate, because it could really have been done in a cooler way, but unfortunately it was just done the way that it was done, and there's not really much we can do about it. Hopefully they do utilize the same skeleton for Jinderhard in some other monsters that don't feel as siege-like, because if we could just go in and be in and out like, you know, normal 5-10 minute hunt, whatever, it would be so much nicer. I do love its design on how it freezes the rocks to be able to traverse the region, the ice region, and for that I would put it up here. It's got a cool like ultimate attack, and it introduces people to how to deal with essentially one-shot attacks, even though you can survive it quite easily. But that's besides the point. Guardian Ebony Odogaron. Now, this is a can of worms to unpack, because it's an Odogaron, it's Ebony Odogaron, and it's Guardian Ebony Odogaron. So Odogaron is really freaking fast, I feel. Ebony Odogaron slows it down and just makes it more dragon-orientated, and Guardian Ebony Odogaron kind of just adds all of that together with Wilk, and just makes it really, really like fun, fast, and engaging. And for that, I would put it actually here. I would put it above Kongolala, just because it's such a it's a fun fight. It's annoying on Greatsword, but it's one of those fast-paced monsters that you've just got to have. And the armor set looks so good. Odogaron armor sets always look so good. But next we have Juwu, which I feel falls into a similar vein as New Udra, being a tentacle octopus archetype monster. It's not as cool. It's more acidic and like paralytic in its like properties, which doesn't feel as cool as, you know, big oily squid monster that breathes fire, lights itself on fire. So I feel like it sits just above Kongolala and below Odogaron for me. Next, Guardian Fulgur Anjanath, a surprise to be sure that was included in this game, but I do like Anjanath as much as I did actually quit Monster Hunter World the first time I ever played because of Anjanath. But I do like Anjanath, and especially Fulgur Anjanath, as a monster. It's a cool take on just the generic T-Rex, which I feel like is somewhat lacking, at least to my knowledge, in the Monster Hunter franchise, so I'm glad that it exists. As for it being Guardian, which augments its Wilk abilities, I do think it deserves some recognition for everything that it is. How much recognition, however? It is I mean, I think it's here between Wu and Ebony Odogaron. It is quite a good fight. It feels really good. It feels really bad when you get hit, but it's it's got some really good tells and it can be quite fun. Next, we have Rathian. Good old returning Rathian. Where do I think Rathian lies? I think Rathian's it's one of those. It's middle of the road. It's like if you've played a Monster Hunter game before, you know Rathian. You love Rathian. It's one of the good old favorites generally. So there's not much to say about Rathian that hasn't been said a bajillion times before. However, Rathian is absolutely, definitely a middle of the road fight, but that's not a bad thing necessarily. Being a middle of the road fight is never a bad thing. Next, we have our good old friend Gypsaros. I really do like the concept of this monster. Its entire mechanics, at least the first time you fight it, are one of those where it's just like it plays dead and you can carve it and it has like a fake out. It's such a cool idea. However, in concept, it really just after like your first time fighting it, it really doesn't have anything else to do with it, unfortunately. So it's just a rip off, unfortunately, of Yang Kutku, I'd say. And Yang Kutku is ripped off by not only Gypsaros, but it's also kind of ripped off by I think Gypsaros came first, but it's also ripped off by what's it called now? Yangaruga. Yangaruga. Like Gypsaros, it's an okay fight, but I mean, no, actually, I think Gypsaros is more down here. It it's only barely in here, but it could be better. It needs a bit more augmented abilities to it, I think. But next is speaking of Yan Kutku. Yan Kutku is similar to Gypsaros, but Yan Kutku at least actually has what feels like a working pack mechanic, unlike some of the others on this list. And purely because of that, I feel like it deserves being like maybe not quite as a really good fight. It deserves being here. It's got the fire breath attacks, and that's generally pretty much it. But it's not an amazing monster. It's an old monster, so it's not gonna be an amazing monster unless they completely rework it. I am now going to quickly swap and skip Zoshia until the end and move on to Rathalos actually next. Rathalos is the same as Rathian. There's not really much to say. It's probably slightly better than Rathian purely because of the fact that it's essentially the fan monster, and on top of that, it's all like it's Rathalos. Everyone knows him, everyone loves him, kind of thing, or hates him. In the case of Greatsword, because he will not sit the fuck down on the ground unless you flash him and trap him every 2 seconds. But there's not much to say about Rathalos. Blagonga, however, there is something to say about. Blagonga is a better attempt at the pack mechanic. You can still feel that it's not right like 100%, but it's the first, I think, 8 monster. I might be wrong on that. Rishang might have been before, but it deserves being in. I think Lagonga could be fit here between Uthrun and Yankutku. That seems pretty fair. Let's get the last of the non-major fights out of the way, being Gravios. I do actually quite like Gravios as a monster. It's similar to Diablos, which is just it's a big tanky monster essentially. Like it's designed so that it can just tough everything out and just deal a bunch of damage back to you. It's got some cool fire attacks, and its raw is amazing. Its burr raw sounds so freaking good. I love it. I don't know if it used to be like that, but if it didn't, then that's unfortunate, but I do like it. And honestly, I think it's going to be I'm going to rate it as a really good fight. And I think it probably belongs right about here, just above Jinderhard. Jinderhard is looking more and more like a not a bad, not good fight as time goes on. Right, Guardian Arkfeld. I'm not sure if there really is any difference between the two of them, So I'm gonna rate Guardian Arkfeld purely off of its design, and then Arkfeld off of the entire kit. So just keep that in mind. Arkfeld on the Guardian side of things, however, just purely based on the design, looks pretty freaking cool. So I would rate it up here as a really good fight. But again, that's based purely on its visuals and not its fight mechanics itself. The fight mechanics, like I said, I'll rate when I get to Arkfeld, but we'll do Arkfeld now because that makes the most sense. Arkfeld itself, I mean, it's got some really cool chain attacks. Its design is definitely better on the Guardian version, however, but I'm trying to work out, like, it's a strong monster, it's a cool monster, it's the flagship. I would rate it, yeah, I was debating whether to put it as a really good fight or up here, to be fair, and I think it deserves being up here. Go Magala. Go Magala. Oh god. It's got a really, really cool armor set. I mean, so does a lot of these monsters have pretty cool armor sets, depending on what you're into and what you like. But Gomagala is a really, really cool monster, and I do like it, and I like the idea of the frenzy virus behind it. Obviously, Gomagala is an old monster. Not all of these on this list are new monsters, of course. There's half of these, give or take, are returning monsters, but that's totally fine as long as they are still amazing, fresh, and fun. And for that reason, I'm going to actually put Gormagala above Arkfeld, an amazing 10 out of 10, just because of like the entire ecology, lore, and how it looks, and it being a proto, like not a proto, but like it's a baby form, a underdeveloped form of Shigaru Magala. Because when a Gormagala gets to a certain point, it sort of evolves into a Shigaru Magala, and I love the ecology and the lore of it. However, the last on the list is going to be our good friend Zoshia. Now, this should be an obvious one. I would say that it just belongs up in the top tier, and that is purely based on, again, the implications of Zoshia in the story and its abilities that it has as a result of that. As the fight starts, it's just, a monster of Wilk, essentially. But when you break its face, it's got no eyes. I was like, whoa, freaky, right? And then it gets angry, or it gets to a certain point and it just goes crazy, and its head goes black, and it starts doing fatalis attacks, and then as the fight progresses, it starts doing crimson fatalis attacks, and it starts doing like white fatalis attacks, and you realize that the Wyverians, they made a proto fatalis, like a low effort fatalis almost, as their secret weapon, and it just flows so well, and I just wish we had the armor set, because it's such a cool monster. I just want to be able to fight it more, but as it currently stands, there's no reason to fight it more because it's the last fight in the story in high rank, and you don't get any quests to fight it again. I just wish that we had the armor sets, the weapons. I wish we had a arch-tempered version or something similar to that, so that we could enjoy Zoshia in its full glory. But that's my tier list. This is how I would rank all the monsters in WoWs. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments, if you think any of these would be differently on your tier list, or you would agree or disagree with any of my things on the tier list. Please let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll catch you all in the next one.